All right, hey, check this out. I'm about to give y'all some real truths about status correction and redeeming your name and all the stuff that have to do with basically getting your freedom. Because there's a lot of major misconceptions, and some of them really, really need to get recognized and corrected. So I'm gonna do my part. So check this out. I had a conversation with somebody pretty recently, right? And they were trying to basically get me to consult them on like what they need to do for their status correction. And what I realize is a lot of the time people don't know what questions to ask. And that might actually make it difficult for somebody to give you what you need as far as the information aspect. Because when you're talking to somebody who's got a wealth of information, if you don't know what to ask, it's still kind of like a primer. Like you gotta know what to type in to the search engine for the search engine to give you something. It's like you can't just go to Google and expect Google to teach you things. You gotta know what questions to ask. So I'm now that I've been thinking about this for a little while, what I recognized is what a lot of people have in common, from all of the people that have been reaching out to me and stuff trying to figure this stuff out. Y'all actually don't have the right questions to ask. So this is what I think that y'all actually been trying to, like, after I've been really thinking about this, y'all been trying to find out something that I haven't necessarily been able to explain to people just because they haven't asked things the right way. But now that I see what most of y'all's intentions are, which is really just to have your privacy and to be free, now I get, okay, this is what people really need to comprehend. First of all, freedom is a state of mind, but this is what you really got to recognize when it comes to the status correction and stuff being on paper. Anytime that you are doing something with the government and you're dealing with documentation that you didn't originate, aka you didn't write it, you didn't print it, etc., if somebody else created it, then you're never gonna get the true highest sovereign level of control over something, right? All these people are trying to get to the sovereignty level, but you don't realize, bro, for you to be sovereign, you have to be able to self-govern. What does it mean to self-govern, though? It means several things. But you have to actually have, first of all, the correct status when it comes to doing commerce in the public, but also what you have to comprehend the difference between the public and the private. And a lot of people don't really get what the difference is, right? And even me, in the beginning of this, I didn't really know the truest differences between the public and the private. Anytime that you pushing paperwork for them to see, that's in the public, okay? I need you to comprehend it. So if you're authenticating your birth certificate, if you're doing the freaking UCC1 financing statement, if you're getting rid of your driver's license or getting a driver's license or anything like that, bro, anytime you're doing this stuff, first of all, a lot of that stuff, most of y'all are not going to actually need, or you're not going to comprehend the truest intentions and ways to do that stuff like the way that you really need to. But most of y'all don't need to do that stuff anyway. So you really got to be able to get why you need to do it with whatever you're trying to accomplish. But just because one person does this stuff or certain things don't mean that you're going to need to. It could be some stuff that you might need to do that I don't need to, and stuff that I'm going to do that you won't need to, just because it all depends on what kind of level you're trying to play on. So stay with me. So while we're thinking about all of this stuff that we're trying to achieve, you got to recognize why you want to be in the public sometimes and why you want to be in the private. But you got to know that you got to do both, especially because you're already in the system, right? You're already registered as a freaking government employee, whether you realize it or not. If you got a social security number, if you got a driver's license, if you got a birth certificate, all that type of stuff, if you're already doing business with them, right? All of that is in the public. Private stuff doesn't actually get disclosed. This is what you need to really wrap your head around. If it's actually in the private, you don't have to document that stuff anywhere. You don't actually tell them that stuff because it's private. It's privacy. So on any of this paperwork, you're not supposed to be giving out your private information, right? So you're not supposed to have to put your address on anything, like where you actually live. Bro, why would you put your address on any of this paperwork if that's your privacy? The whole point of pushing this paperwork is to genuinely have your privacy. This is what I'm realizing most of y'all's intention is, but you got to recognize what that means. And then, of course, you got to know how to function in the public and in the private. It's a huge difference. Like, it's literally two totally different worlds. But you got to know how to function in both of them because you're already in the public. Now, of course, I'm not talking about the people who was born sovereign. Their parents didn't give them a birth certificate or a social security number or nothing like that. But what I'm talking about is you, the person who's trying to redeem yourself and find remedy and get out of the system, right? You are already in the public. So you need to figure out how to function in the public, how to operate in the public, and also comprehend what it means to have your privacy. Now, check this out. There are ways for you to not have to pay taxes and be tax exempt as you're a private person, quote unquote person. If you're doing anything in the public, if you're a government employee and all that stuff, you absolutely have to pay taxes. Absolutely. Ain't no question about it. So there's nothing to debate. I know that a lot of y'all are trying not to pay taxes, right? So if you want to be on paper as you are tax exempt, you got to figure out what kind of business entity you need to function under in the public, right? Okay, so most of y'all might need to join a tribe or originate your own or create your own, right? Because this is what people don't realize. As people are doing all of this stuff that has to do with having freedom and government benefits and any of that type of stuff, you're either going to be benefiting from your government or your own tribe, but either way, it's your government, right? You need to really comprehend what the difference is. Like you can't just be out here talking about I'm an individual. That doesn't really, okay, maybe I shouldn't say individual, I should say independent. You shouldn't be saying stuff like you're independent when it comes to like what this stuff is. You can actually be quote unquote independent in life or whatever, be self-sufficient and whatnot. But I'm talking about on paper, how they see it. You don't really want to be independent. You want to be able to claim some kind of group, some kind of gang, some type of religion. All this stuff is really about your faith and your religion. You see how they keep saying full faith and credit of the United States, right? So you got to figure out what that is. What is faith and what is your faith? Who are you? Who are you? This is what you got to recognize. Do you know why these Indian tribes don't have to pay taxes? You know why they got the money and the freaking resources and all of that stuff, casinos and all type of stuff? Is because they are actually a part of a group. You can't just be trying to push paperwork and you don't actually have somebody you can depend on, especially if you're not even sustainable yourself, right? So the government basically set this stuff up to where you have benefits that they are willing to give you because you basically ain't got yourself together, right? So if your parents sold you out, they gave you a birth certificate, a social security number, a slave number, or whatever you want to call it, right? Basically, that would have been done because otherwise they didn't know how to provide for you. On paper, this is how they see it. This is how the system sees it. If you don't have your tribe looking out for you, then they're going to take care of you because you're not competent enough to function in commerce. So you're a minor. This is how they look at it. A minor, M-I-N-O-R, like a child, right? Like somebody who's insubordinate, somebody who can't speak for themselves, who can't actually take care of themselves. This is how it's really seen. And the way they see it, you can't take care of yourself if you can't provide land for your people, if you can't provide food, if you can't provide health care and all that type of stuff. This is what you got to get, bro. These tribes and stuff are only really respected and internationally recognized once they prove that they can actually provide all of this stuff for their people. So we talk about the Indians, right? Quote unquote Indians. But they got reserves, right? They got locations where these Indians, quote unquote, can live. They can sleep there. They got food for them. They got food, clothing, and shelter, and anything else that somebody else would need in order to survive. You got to get that this is what a true tribe looks like. It's an actual religion. They got their culture. They got their religious beliefs, the ways that they dress, the ways that they speak, their own language. And a lot of the time they even have their own calendar and their own court system and their own government as a whole. But you really got to figure this out. You got to really be able to wrap your head around this, because we don't get why we're even put in the system in the first place. The reason is because you ain't got no culture, right? Of course we have one, but a lot of us forgot ours, right? Or we got distracted from it. We got pushed into something else that really ain't with our roots and all that type of stuff. So we don't even know what God to worship no more because we got that pushed on us. Or we might not know who to believe in. We might not believe in ourselves. We might have to believe in somebody else taking care of us, or some crazy stuff. But regardless, bro, this is what I'm trying to get y'all to comprehend. You have to be a truly sovereign person in order to be able to function in the world in a way in which they see it as, okay, you don't really need our help, because the government is looking at it from the perspective of, bruh, if you can't help yourself, we have to help you. So the government is basically like, if you can't provide health care for yourself and your family, then we'll do it. You just fill out an application for, Medicaid, goddamn, Medicare. If you ain't got no retirement plan set up for you through your tribe and your family, then they'll provide all that stuff for you. And basically, they'll take responsibility for you and the stuff that you need, because you can't do it for yourself. You're not competent enough or sustainable enough financially to do it for yourself. They set this stuff up actually for your benefit. Do you get that? Like, yeah, these folks might be evil and stuff, but they found a way for them to benefit and for you to benefit. So once you really can wrap your head around all this stuff, bro, you'll really be able to then push forward. And you may want to do something like look into 508c1a, right? You heard of a 501c3 before, probably. They tax exempt or whatever. But a lot of people don't recognize what you might want to do, as far as what you, as the person watching this video, may want to achieve. Of course, I don't know what your true intentions are or whatever, but what you might want to look into is joining the tribe that's 508c1a, right? Because they're going to be tax exempt, and if you're a part of that tribe, then you're tax exempt. If you get a birth certificate, freaking IDs, shelter, insurance, food through your tribe and all that, bro, you straight, and you ain't really got to worry about anything that has to do with the government, because they don't have to do anything for you. Like, if they got to do something for you, then, well, you're back in the public again. But when you really in the private, they ain't gonna be able to do anything for you, because they don't even know what you're up to. They're not even gonna know that you exist on paper, technically. Like, do you really get it? So then you could do stuff like, whenever you need resources and whatnot, you go to your tribe about that junk. You don't go to the government about it. But you see how they got our mentality, a lot of us, about a lot of our people who might be called copper-colored people. In this culture, or at least on this continent, with the people I've seen, a lot of the time, if they don't know how to feed themselves, they can't just go to their family members and their family members look out for them. Shoot, these family members so messed up, they don't even want to help. They be like, dang, you grown, you can't take care of yourself? Like, they'll look at that like that's a problem. But actually, we all are dependent on somebody somehow, whether you're dependent on your master at your job, or whether you're dependent on the government to give you food stamps so you can eat next month, or whether you're dependent, bro, I could just keep going on and on. But really, a lot of the time, our people are dependent on this government assistance for insurance and healthcare and stuff like that, or their job, but they're not getting these things from their tribal chief, who should be able to provide these things for them, because maybe you don't actually belong to any tribe. So of course ain't nobody taking care of you, ain't nobody looking out for you, because, well, you kind of like a lost puppy. And then I'm not necessarily saying that it's your fault or anything, but somebody got to take the blame. So if you stay on this path of lostness, it's only your fault, because there's plenty of information on the internet, there's plenty of documentation and history and stuff to read, and you got this thing called a mind's eye, where you could set intentions and find out things in the universe. You could be all spiritual and meditate and find out stuff. So if you don't really get to the bottom of what you're trying to accomplish in life, bro, ain't nobody else to blame ultimately but you. But this is what I can tell you: you can do it. All right, so this is what we want to plan. I know me and my folks, we long term, we want to be able to provide for other people too, because we see that there's a lot of people who forgot their culture and don't really know who they truly belong to and stuff like that. So we just gonna put together our own little village and see where that goes. But of course, that's long term plans and whatnot. But holla at me if you think that's a good idea, and if you got any resources, you got some land, you got some knowledge, you got some money, some gold, some silver, anything like that. You know how to do private banking, bonds, securities, anything like that. Holla at me, bruh. Send me an email, DM me on Instagram at j.nyne and the number 9, and let's get to it, bro, because we got plenty to do in this lifetime. Holla at me.